precious iced coffee. Perfect for a day like today, which is a bit of a scorcher. Surprisingly so, considering we are in mid-September. So I'm over here at Cafe Mucho Gusto. Before I really started to pay attention to small coffee shops, this is actually one that I would visit quite a bit because, well, in case you're ever wondering where I am now, I am in Rosemont, near my grandmother's old location. So I used to come by for walks, and then if I ever wanted a coffee along the way home or somewhere to re-energize myself mid-walk, I would stop up over here. I do pay attention to other ones that are around, and I still come back to here to this day because it is kind of nice. And on that note, welcome to another edition of the Wandering Ukie Cheese Cafe. So, just to make sure that you know exactly what a Ukie is a cute way for saying Ukrainian. It's something I've heard a lot when I was growing up as a kid, and I know I've shown up on the channel before a few Ukrainian recipes I put together from start to finish, some cuisines, talked a bit about my heritage, but then I would think that I would want to show off another part of my Ukrainian side, and it's a perfect opportunity because as I'm recording this, it is the same day that the Montreal Ukrainian Festival is taking place. It's the first time it's been coming back since the pandemic, and I knew that I wanted to showcase it a little bit more, maybe talk a bit about the history of the festival too, explain a little bit about the Ukrainians in Montreal, etc., show off the place. Looking to be a very fun one, and it's actually gotten bigger over time too because it's at a larger park. As I probably mentioned before, when I was going to do the walk around Maisonneuve Park, and I want to start here to kind of start my conversation and get a coffee, similar to what I did when I did the Polski picnic. And actually, if you want to see that video, I'm putting a card in the top right corner for you to click on if you want to revisit that. It was a fun one, but this one is also going to be massive. Now, before we get started here, here's what I suggest you do. Hit that like button below, subscribe to the channel, share this if you want, because this is one event that I definitely want to share and promote because it's one thing I'm passionate about and I want everyone else to be able to share the passion. So let's get to this. First, one more sip. So just a quick background here. There is a pretty big community for the Ukrainians in Montreal. They actually did come to Canada sometime around the early 20th century, but it was really around the 1950s when they started to arrive in Canada, obviously because of World War II and wanting to escape to find a new life. That's basically how my grandparents had all came over here. And from what I've read a little bit, there was a community over in Point St. Charles, but the actual Ukie area is within Rosemont, more along St. Michel Street Boulevard and Beaubien Street East. So that's kind of how I know that area well and how my grandparents all ended up around there. And there are quite a few events that take place to showcase Ukrainian culture around here, but the Ukrainian Festival around Montreal is the big one. As I'm recording this, it is the 22nd anniversary of it taking place. I wouldn't be able to tell you if it's counting the last few years, because what happened during the COVID in 2020 was they held a virtual one. It wasn't the same, and I don't even recall one taking place last year in 2021. So I would say this started, well, assuming that the virtual one counts, it probably started like 1998, 1999 or so. So it's been going on quite strong. And obviously as time went on, the festival got big and it would find new parks to hold them in. And in fact, I'm actually coming to one of those parks right now. I'm walking through the outer portion of Beaubien Park, a park I'm more than familiar with because we used to come here when my grandmother was living around the corner. Like to do some visits after supper and then sometimes stop up for the Dairy Queen for some ice cream. I said it before and I'll say it again. I'm surprised they still have the old sign here. It's like all the other ones around my neighborhood have updated. This one is still the old school one. But the other point of reference is in 2017, the Ukrainian Festival actually started to take place within this park, like deep behind the baseball field. If you want to know why, well, like I said, it started to get big as time went on, and 2017 was also the 375th birthday of Montreal. Yeah, any of you probably watching this outside of Canada, outside of Montreal, you're thinking, that's a rather arbitrary number. Well, my best guess is that it was also the same year as Canada's 150th birthday, and there's a whole bunch of celebrations going on to celebrate that. And my guess is that the mayor at the time was thinking, you know what, we want to hop in on the parade too, so we're going to celebrate the 375th. Yeah, not exactly a big celebration. It's like saying, I want to celebrate my 33rd birthday, or take it some random number. But he did make an appearance at this one here, and what was I thinking at the time? Yeah, if he just wore a mayor sash all across him, he would probably be like Mayor Quimby from The Simpsons. Yeah, that was my first flashback when I saw that. But because of that event, the Ukrainian Festival moved to this park, and there were a lot more vendors. It was a lot more expensive too, and it was like that up until 2019, the very last year that I attended it.
Every day I wanna fly my kite, and every day I wanna fly my kite, and every day I wanna get on my camel and ride. Ooh, yeah. Every day I wanna shake your hand.
This intersection of Saint Michel Boulevard and Beaubien Street East is where in the past there were most of the Ukrainian businesses and where the community was. And in fact, I'm actually passing by an old Ukrainian bank that my parents had got their mortgage when they bought the first house that we lived in on the South Shore. And there's still actually a Desjardins Ukrainian bank there. It's kind of affiliated. They're one of the sponsors obviously for the festival too. And actually I'm going to be approaching a nice little deli that I showcased before in the past, but I'm going to showcase again because they do have amazing stuff. Ah yes, Zhetinsky's Deli. It's been in the family for 3 generations, and I'm going to send my hat to Angel Zhetinsky because she's actually known me since I was a kid, and every time I pass by, friends meet her, they can hear the story about when she knew me since I was yay high and gets to see how I've grown to be. They make great smoked meat sandwiches. You can get some kielbasa here, you can get a whole bunch of stuff, plenty of goodies, except I mentioned before, on Saturdays they usually are closed at 2 o'clock, but today exceptionally it's closed because Zhetinsky's is actually one of the vendors that's going to be over at the festival. Naturally, I'm going to go pay them a visit and make sure I say hi to Angel. There, right behind me is the St. Sophie Church, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. So right now where I am at is within Parc de l'Ukraine. This park is actually the very first park where the festival was held over the first several years before they really expanded. As you could probably tell around here, it's a pretty small one. So obviously as the festival had taken place and had been growing in popularity, they would have needed more place to be able to get more visitors here, and especially more vendors coming in. I did actually used to come over here too when I was a kid. I've got fond memories of the playground area. Well, it's definitely changed a lot over the years because they used to have one of these large plastic slides, and it was like a yellow one, went around a swirl. So as a kid, I was always kind of thrilled about a twirly slide. Even though Beaubien Park was technically close to my grandmother's, I always wanted to come to this one too for that reason. What else can I say? Just in case I didn't mention it earlier, because I don't want to go back through all my old footage, Montreal does have a huge Ukrainian community, but there's also communities especially in Toronto, Ottawa from what I've heard too, and even Winnipeg. In fact, for the fun of it, sometimes I would Google my last name and be able to see that there are some people out in Winnipeg or out in other parts of the country where they do have it, but they anglicize it instead of having my kind of crazy spelling that everyone gets tongue-tied over. And some of these will probably have a lot more of a following, more stores and such. So actually what they would do sometimes is they would actually set up shop over here. Like you'd have a whole bunch of stores, shops, vendors and such coming all the way to Montreal to have shop. And even some of the performers that are going to be on stage actually are flown in from Ukraine to hold this. So that's pretty neat, is that you get the culture directly from Ukraine brought over here. Etienne Desmarteaux Park. or as my aunts used to call it, the reservoir, because there is actually a reservoir of water underneath this hill. Never would have guessed until recently, but I've already talked about that. Gotta find a garbage can for this coffee. Now, in years prior, the festival was held over a 3-day period, always within the first weekend of the month of September, which was always right after Labor Day weekend. So it would be a 3-day period where Friday evening is when it would begin, Saturday would be like basically all day, and then Sunday would take place early morning up until like around 5 p.m. Now, Saturday was always the busiest day, obviously, so that's why they did what they did. But this year, what they're doing is, it's only going to be a 1-day celebration. I know, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? But it's like 9 o'clock till 9 o'clock, and I guess they figure that if they're going to do 1 day, they're going to do like one really busy day and make it a massive one. And yeah, I saw the stage setup because on their Facebook page, they posted an image. It's going to be grand. And apparently I heard there's going to be like 70 vendors around the area today. Kind of stoked to see what they're going to have lined up. Well, I guess this kind of explains a little bit of the history. I always wondered like why this was named after Etienne de Marteau and what the significance was, but according to this plaque here, he won a gold medal at the 1904 Olympics in St. Louis, USA. Oh, for the hammer throw. Not exactly an easy sport. Quite nice. Nice plaque. I guess if I was going to be a cheese factory, I could say, well, instead of having a street named after you, like one street I lived in St. Hubert, how would you like a rock named after you? Yeah, I'm sure someone's going to think it's bad. And I'm probably hearing in my head right now, Shostaboyu. Shostaboyu basically means, what's the matter with you? It was an expression I remember my dad used to say a lot to me when I was growing up. He only really spoke English and Ukrainian. He never did learn French. But his Ukrainian was pretty well, because he spoke that with his parents a lot. So some expressions I do know offhand come from him, like Shostaboyu is one of those. Dobry den means good morning. Moloko is milk. Kapusta means cabbage. Actually, kapusta sounds like a very funny word to me, honestly. Yeah, I did learn a little bit. I did go to Ukrainian school for a couple of years when I was a kid. Some stuff didn't stick around for much, and we eventually gave up. I think it was like a choice of, we could either go to Ukrainian school or we could have cable TV. And a kid who wanted to watch Bugs Bunny and Tweety Show on a Saturday instead of going to Ukrainian school, well, I think it was a no-brainer for me. So even though I knew a few words, if you're actually going to test my comprehension of Ukrainian, that's kind of where I had fallen apart and would fail. I had my first communion practice at the nearby church, not at St. Sophie, it's the other one I've mentioned before. That was the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary, which is the Ukrainian Catholic one. And actually, if you want, wrong way, I'll put a link on the top right corner for you to watch that again, because that was my wander for the first time around Rosemont in my old hood. But that's where I had my first communion practice. And I was the kid where I would be sitting in church, listening to the liturgy, listening to the ceremony, but not being able to follow. I would have been able to recite an Our Father or a Hail Mary. I knew how to pronounce it, I knew how to say it, but I didn't necessarily know what I was saying too, so my comprehension was not very good. I wouldn't be able to be expressive with it, where I'm just trying to think, am I saying this right? Am I pronouncing it right? Because the Ukrainian alphabet could be a little bit complicated at times. Actually, there's another expression I do remember from my church days. Christos voskres, which means Christ is risen. It's what you would usually say around Easter time. All depends on which week Easter falls upon, because as I probably mentioned before, us Ukrainians, Ukrainian Catholics will follow the Ukrainian Orthodox calendar just because we're actually a minority in the country. So we pretty much follow the Julian calendar, which the Christmas falls on January 7th for us, and Easter, it actually varies from year to year. Some years it could fall on the same day as Roman Catholic Easter, other times it could be a month afterwards. Why? Well, I guess they wanted to be better or be do things their own way. You know, my way or the highway. Hey, don't look at me that way. I'm a funny guy.
And the sandcastle virtues are all swept away.
I've now made my way onto P9 Boulevard, or I guess we're going to say it in English, Pi 9. I know that Pi 9 is supposed to have some kind of religious connotation of who it's named after, but I like to think that Pi 9 is the one that succeeded, because Pies 1 through 8, they were just failed baking experiments. That's my best guess. Yeah, I know, cheese factory, etc., etc. It's almost like I got hit in the head, and that's what's making me become all rancid. Well, that kind of explains a lot. I'm slowly making my way to Maisonneuve Park, which means I'm going to be very close to where the festival is taking place. Probably going to be a lot of nice food and other stuff I could check out, like I mentioned. Hopefully it's a lot of traditional stuff. Because back years ago, there used to be a lot more shops in the area that you'd be able to get some of the embroidered stuff, the wood-carved crosses and other things, but it's one of those that could be very intricate, and it's definitely a time-consuming kind of art. So as time went on, I guess that some people didn't pass on the art, or the kids weren't interested in keeping up the old styles, so some of them kind of went away. I'm hoping that eventually that some of them do pick up again, or there's always other shops around that might have more of a community. For me in culture, but one big part of the culture that I love is obviously the cooking. And you've seen me do that before. And in fact, I'm putting a card to the top right corner for my playlist on Ukrainian cuisine, because I put together some great stuff from scratch. Perogies, I've done kubasa, I've done borscht, even that horseradish spread that we do at Easter time. I even tasted some head cheese, which as a name on its own sounds fucking gnarly. It's tasty, but you gotta get past what it's really made out of. So now I'm along Rosemont Boulevard, and I'm gonna be getting close to the entrance to the park. And if I know my geography correct, this is around what they call the new Rosemont area, not like the old Rosemont. This one area around here, I remember it has some bungalows, actual standalone homes, and some newer buildings compared to the other parts of Rosemont that I knew pretty well. Vincent Massey School. I honestly forgot that this actually existed on the island of Montreal, because the only point of reference I got is Vincent Massey on the South Shore. Now, going back to the last thing about my part of Ukrainian heritage from growing up, I know that my parents did have some old records of polka music or folk music hidden in the basement, alongside some of George Carlin that I wasn't allowed to listen to back at the time, because it did have the 7 words you can't say on TV. And no, I'm not going to repeat them now. If you want to know what those words are, just Google them, thank me later. Or throw a rock at me. But I do recall hearing that on occasion. Like, some of that was actually pretty fun, upbeat, enjoyable. And actually, DJ, can you play some polka for me?
Привітати вас на нинішню забаву, забути роботу, не дбайтеся погоду, нас трохи звеселити ми маємо нагоду. Будьте роботу, не дбайтеся погоду, нас трохи звеселити ми маємо нагоду. Ми є веселі, веселі часи, трохи будем грати і співати, маємо надію вас трохи звеселити. Ми є веселі, веселі часи, маємо надію вас трохи звеселити. Ми є веселі,
A tank? Okay, we're getting into serious business here. Well, we've made it 2 years later and we're back at the festival. So I knew that it was going to be kind of big because it's being held at a bigger park, but yet I didn't realize it would be this massive this year. And quite the turnout too. It's a lot more spacious, a lot more vendors, and the lineup for the pierogies are pretty long. I guess while I'm waiting for the pierogi line to die down, you already know what pierogies are. It's basically like a dumpling you can fill with either meat or like cheese and potatoes or sometimes with fruit. But pierogies is kind of based on the Polish term perogies. If you're going to be saying it's Ukrainian, it's called vareniki. And actually, I'll put another link on the top right corner because I did put that together for my Christmas special back in 2020. Showed you how to make it from start to finish. It's awesome. While I'm looking around though, I think we're going to need to find a drink because I am kind of thirsty. That coffee has worn off. Yes, the Ukrainian flag. I've shown that before, and if you wonder where my color scheme comes from on my title cards and thumbnail cards, it's coming from the Ukrainian flag itself, and there is a symbolism to it. So the top part, which is the blue part, is going to be representing the skies, and the yellow is representing the fields of grain, fields of wheat, because Ukraine is actually known as Europe's breadbasket just because they produce a lot of that to agriculture. And naturally, because they produce a lot of that, you could use it for bread, like pascha, which is a pretty typical thing you get Easter time. Oh yeah, and you could also use it to ferment beer. Speaking of which, I think I found some beer right there. Very nice. If you want to know what song that was, your guess is as good as mine. The only song I would remember offhand is the melody of the Ukrainian national anthem, because I do remember that back when we were going to Ukrainian school in the old days, that we would always go there 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and we'd always start in the assembly hall to be singing that before we started the day. Yeah, it was one of those kind of things. There was one other memory I do recall too, was 1991, which was the year that Ukraine had regained independence from the Soviet Union. And I remember we were going to be going to class that day, but it was one that class was completely canceled because they had a little celebration over in the main hall, cake, everything else. So it's like, we got independence, take the day off from school. Yeah, I wish I knew what song was playing in the background, but once again, I would not be able to tell you. Yep, we finally got our beverage today, people, and it's a good one because this is one I actually got in the past. They just changed the design of it altogether. So what they got is a Ukrainian-style beer, not actually something from Ukraine, because originally in the festival, like I would say before 2017 or so, they would actually import Lvivsky from the city of Lviv. It's hard to find now because I think my understanding is liquor laws in the province kind of made it difficult to import, so they realized they're going to get a local microbrewer to be able to brew something that kind of comes close to the style of it. And if you want to know which one it is, it's something from the Labrosse Brewery, located in Pointe Claire, and they make one that's called Volia, which translates from Ukrainian to freedom in English. Wait, the Labrosse Brewer, why does that ring a bell? Oh yeah, I tried out a Scotch ale, but I was doing that Super Mario Kart gag a while back. All right, so let's open one up. I'm gonna give it cheers. Actually, I'll do it properly. Toast to health and Slava Ukraina. Delicious. This feels nice. And you know, even after the festival had stopped selling Lvivsky, I actually had a close encounter being able to try it again when I did a trip into Madrid, Spain back in 2018 along Cava Baja, which is a really nice street that you can find a whole bunch of tapas bars with different vibes. I did recall seeing one Ukrainian bar over there that I felt like I had to check out because I was under the assumption I'd be able to get Lvivsky on tap, which is almost unheard of in Canada, period. Little did I know that they only had Mahu, which is the local house beer that every single bar has, and the only way I could get Lvivsky is if I got it in a bottle. If I really wanted to try it, I could, but the only thing was, when I'm out and about, if I can get anything on draft, I'm going to have draft for sure. Can is only like a last resort if they don't have it available, so that was almost a little bit disappointing. But at least I could say that I went to a Ukrainian bar in the middle of Spain, which sounds a bit more normal when you say I was having some draft Australian beer in an Irish pub in the middle of Spain, just like a whole mess of things. And yes, that did happen before. But hey, this thing is pretty good. Nice, easygoing blonde that's about 5%. So like your typical lager. Plus, unlike previous years where I was able to get Lvivsky, at least with this one I could buy the can, drink what I want at the festival, and then I could even bring some home to share with family, friends who do want to try it out. So it does have some benefits. Again, Lvivsky couldn't bring outside the festival, but I suppose if I do want to try it again, I could always make a trip to Ottawa eventually because I do have friends that live over there, and I'll be able to stop off at the LCBO to get some. Just in case you don't live within Canada, the LCBO is the liquor board of Ontario, kind of like having the SAQ in Quebec, and they do sell it there. They actually have a selection of stuff that you can't find even in Quebec too.
We are welcome here at Barvinok Dance Group. Please. And you'll enjoy one more performance, and they will be...
Well, pretty nice recital that I saw. Glad I was able to get a little bit of dancing record to show off for everyone. And I guess, full disclosure, traditional Ukrainian dress, embroidery, well, I kind of do have a soft spot for that, so if anyone wants to walk up to me and ask me out with that, then I'm probably going to melt. You know what? I have an idea. I'm going to put that on my Tinder profile, see if I can get something going. I'm starting to think these trophies are more badges of dishonor than anything.
Ryan, I was a soldier in the International Legion for the defense of Ukraine from February. I've been looking back and studying a soldier since then.
Well, that was kind of nice. Now, I'm starting to feel a little bit hungry because I didn't really have too much to eat. My goal now is I'm in the line for the vahenike or pierogi, so I can get myself a little bit of a platter to be able to have and share with everyone. You'll be able to share with me on camera. There's no way I can share this food virtually with you. It's quite a lineup, but I'm sure I'm going to get to it, and it's going to be worth the wait. All right, got lucky because there was someone over here who was saying that they accept cash. The lineup is mostly for people who are going to be buying this with credit or debit. So because I withdrew some money just out of a precaution, I kind of bypassed that a lot. So I got myself my pierogies here. As you were able to tell by the previous footage, this is like a huge assembly line where they're making this round the clock for everybody because it is quite the process to make. It takes a good 4 hours if you're lucky enough. But it's worthwhile because store-bought ones, you know, some people say they like pierogies and they like the store-bought brand, but when you do homemade, you can never go back to that. It's amazing stuff. Now, let's see if I can find a good way to do this. Okay, so you're gonna watch me struggle on camera quickly. Here we go. So the way that I have it here looks a bit like this. So it's potato and cheese. What kind of cheese? I wouldn't be able to tell you that. It's probably like cottage cheese if you're doing this traditionally. There might be some cheddar you can add here for added variety, but they do it the other way where they add some sauteed onions onto this because sauteed or caramelized onions are pretty typical in the dish. And for a dipping sauce, look no further than sour cream. Yep, you just need some plain sour cream to dip this because that's the traditional way to do it. Actually, I did make this once with one of my closest friends where she's actually part Ukrainian. Never made it before and kind of wanted to experiment with it. So I taught her that. And then when she tried it out, she said it kind of looks like oversized ravioli, so you could probably do this with a rosé sauce too. And I thought, you know, that's kind of true. I never thought of it that way. And I'm sure it would be good with a rosé. I might experiment on that one of these days, but for all intents and purposes, today I'm doing this the proper way. Let me see if I can find a good spot to try this out. Yeah, hang on. Get to watch me make an ass of myself on camera. So what I'll do, oh, that's a knife, not a fork. Sorry, I'm just pulling a fork out of my ass. There we go. One pierogi dipped in sour cream. Such a beautiful thing. I wanted to see if I could get any more dancing, and I got lucky because that last recital that I pointed out, it did have some of the other crazy moves that the guys do when they dance, like bent all the way down to their knees and maybe even kicking pretty crazily. How you do that without bending your knees or even breaking your back, I don't know. But I'm taking a bit of a break now, and I'm just going to wander to see what else is over here. If you want any kind of a good dessert too, I would recommend getting what's called punchki, or as they say in Ukrainian, pampushka, which is essentially a jelly-filled donut, mostly with plum jelly. And you can find that one of the booths that's right behind me. It's called Vavel or Wavel. They're a pretty big chain that's all around the island of Montreal. Like, I could tell you offhand, there's one around the Jean Talon Market. There's one on Ontario Street, close to Iberville. There's one like maybe around Concordia, on St. Catherine, one in Côte-de-Neige, one, yeah, it's practically everywhere over here. Yep. With the yellow and blue color scheme of the Ukrainian flag, you're going to find a lot of that over here, and some of the decor and in some of the decorations. In fact, right behind me is another place you could get some flags, shirts, embroideries, all sorts of stuff. Okay, I did mention that there are very few Ukrainian boutiques that are around, but if you want a good one that's actually located in Montreal, then right here is yevshan.com. There's only like maybe one warehouse that's located over in Pointe Claire, but it's a mail order one that you go online to their site. In fact, I'm just going to put the link on the bottom over here to visit it because they have a lot of stuff. Some good designs that are, you know, traditional Ukrainian embroidery, knickknacks. In fact, my cookbook that I've highlighted a few times in the past comes from them. Baba's Cookbook, Volume 1. But if you're asking me, I don't think they got Volume 2, because when you got all the classic recipes in Volume 1, do you really need a second volume? Well, there's another interesting part of the decor, like clothing, maybe some knickknacks that's around. It's rushnik, which is a style of embroidery that you get around Ukraine. So I'm sure you've seen something like it, but it kind of looks like this. The traditional one I always knew growing up as a kid was red over a white background, but they do come in other varieties like blue, black, white, and whatever. Apparently all the designs, colors are pretty regional. Like, depending on which part of Ukraine you go in, that's how they're going to vary. I wish I knew all the regional differences with the embroidery, because I love that style. I love the traditional stuff though. That's just me. Yep, I wanted to film myself right in front of a tank. Still can't believe that thing is over here. It's crazy. So, did a little bit of a shopping spree at Yevshan. Well, not so much of a spree, but getting a few things offhand because it gave me some more stuff that I wanted to talk about. So I've probably mentioned this in the past, but the Ukrainian Easter eggs are pretty typical to make, and they kind of look like this. Well, I'm going to show you a bit of the design right now. You can get a bit of that on camera. So as you can see, it's a pretty intricate kind of way of making it. And I've talked about how this is made before, but basically you need to use beeswax, an egg, a writing tool that's called a kiska, and also a variety of dyes. So the way that works is that you would take your egg first. Well, actually some eggs are going to be, depending on who you talk to, they might just say poke a hole in the egg so you can blow out the yolk. Other ones will say that you want to hard boil them, or it all varies depending on how you want to do it. But essentially the way that it works is that if you're going to be keeping a section white, you would write some wax right onto that. Well, you basically scoop it out with the writing tool, melt the wax over a candle, and then you apply to the egg directly. And then what that does is that anything that has that wax on the white is going to stay white, and then you apply to a dye, let's say yellow. Then once you take it out of the dye and then it dries up, what you do afterwards is you would use wax again to cover up the parts you want to keep yellow, and then put in your next dye, and then keep going until you go from your lightest colors to your darkest colors. That's how you do that. And because I'm trying to be a little bit creative now, I did end up picking up one of these. So this is a pisanke kit that I picked up because I'm thinking eventually I'm going to want to make it one of these days. I used to do them as a kid. I wasn't always very good, but I did put a lot of effort into it. So worst case, it's like a way to practice a new art, or best case, it turns out I have another hidden talent that I didn't realize.
I've seen some of the javelin t-shirts here today. If you were wearing one of them might be my design. I thought, okay, now that that's done, I've designed the shirt, we're selling it. We've raised over whatsoever.
Well,
I just said
funny thing about a festival is that you could run into people you haven't seen in a while or run into friends, so always kind of nice. And speaking of people I know, I would not be doing this justice if I wasn't showcasing Zhatinsky's Deli in the back of me, because once again, Angel Zhatinsky giving you props and giving you all my love, all my... lost my train of thought for a second, but all good spirits, all good wishing. In fact, I might stop off later on to get a smoked meat sandwich, because those there are pretty awesome. Well, had to do another tour around because I felt like I had to check a few more shops and was told there's a little cocktail bar, and even though I'm not a mixed drink kind of guy, it's still something I wanted to check out. I did try with my aunt, who happened to be here, a little bit of a spiced vodka. Pretty nice. I don't usually go for spiced drinks, but you know, I'll be able to make an exception once in a while to say I've tried it out. And I'm going to be showing my support in another way too. Nice Ukraine wristband. I'm trying to find one of the other symbols around here and hope I could talk a little bit about it. Just a question of where it's located that's inconspicuous. Oh, actually... So, you've probably seen this symbol before on some of the stuff I showcased. It's the Ukrainian coat of arms called the Trezub. If you're to look at it closely, it kind of... Well, let's see if I can get a better shot of this. There. So this thing looks like it's basically a trident. I know there's a meaning to this and a history. I don't know all the history of it, but I'm going to look it up one day, maybe cover it on a future episode. But I had to showcase that because the Trezub, the Ukrainian flag, the embroidery, I had to showcase all of those for people who's not familiar with the culture. I don't know if my mind is playing tricks on me, but it looks like they're attaching a whole bunch of cloths to kind of make one large blanket that's a bit frilly. Well, can you imagine how much time that's going to take? Incredible. Wow. Plast. That's another word I haven't seen a lot in a long time. That was like the youth program, which is almost similar to the Scouts. I think I remember once going to like 1 or 2 sessions to that, but didn't really enjoy it as much. Probably one of the things was I didn't know much Ukrainian, so I wasn't going to be able to participate as much. But I think I remember trying some kind of a chili once, and it was kind of spicy for me. I was kind of uncomfortable. And I remember one of the counselors was like, "Hey, are you crying? Why are you crying?" But I wasn't crying. It was just, I was only just reacting to the spice. And I think I should get some donuts now because I know that if I stay any longer, they might run out. Well, did another tour around, ended up going to Wawel, and just had to pick up some donuts for myself, as you could plainly see. So I'd actually have never showcased this thing before. This is... Oh, hang on, let me see if I can get away from the sound. So these kind of donuts are pretty typical in Ukraine. It's pampushki, as they say in Ukrainian, but it's also called punchki in Polish. But they're awesome. They're like basically glazed with a bit of honey, and the filling in here, it all depends. The traditional one is going to be maybe made out of plum, but you can get it with custard, you can get it with other fruit fillings, and it's awesome stuff. We're going to be trying that out soon. Oh, yes, and I did have to get a button for myself, the Trezub, which I can finally show off, along with, on the bottom of it, the wheat. So kind of showcasing Ukraine as Europe's breadbasket.
Lord
Okay, on one hand, I gotta give him credit for having those kind of pipes, but at the same time, I hear this piece, my mind goes right to a Looney Tunes cartoon and the beginning of Mrs. Doubtfire. Is it wrong? That's my point of reference. Or xylophone, whatever it is, and violin, two difficult instruments. Amazing.
Членом хору Монреальського симфонічного оркестру. І сьогодні Юрій Коневич.
Wow. So it's getting close to 7 o'clock, and I think I should probably start moseying along very soon. Well, actually, it's really starting to get packed. It's like this is the most busy I've ever seen the festival in all the years I've been going to it. But I guess with whoa, sorry about that. Guess trying to navigate a crowd's a bit of a pain, but yeah, with a larger crowd, one day only, and also especially in the larger park, it's gonna happen. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just start finding my final drinks, maybe get some beer for the road home. No, it doesn't mean I'm gonna drink on the road home. I'm not that stupid. Basically means that the beer that I buy, I'm able to bring home, drink at whatever I want, and also be able to share with friends and family, whoever does want to have it. Unfortunately, the lineup for Shatinsky's is pretty big, so sadly I don't think I'm gonna be able to talk to Angel Shatinsky, but it is what it is. It's a long lineup. I'll be able to make time again, maybe pay a visit once I do have more free time. So I'm just gonna do a little mosey along, and I'm gonna say to everyone, thank you for watching this latest edition of the Wandering Ukie Cheese Cafe, and finally a video that shows off my Ukie heritage as much as possible. So if you like what you see here, hit that subscribe button below, give this video a like if you enjoy my antics and wandering, and share this video with anyone else, because I do want to promote this for down the road, and the more people who see this, the more I'm sure the festival's going to appreciate it. Oh yeah, and if you have any other ideas for future episodes, then be sure to leave it in the comments section. Till then, take care, see you next time. Maybe I could get some coffee for the road home. Oh, luckily they do have coffee here, but I'm not talking about Mad Clown Parlor extract. That stuff can go to hell.